Futon. Kazakiri no Jutsu, wind release, wind cutter technique. Several sharp blades of wind rushed towards the oblivious bandits and what appeared to be a moment sliced their heads of their necks. It wasn't just a simple slice, their heads were torn to pieces with every part on it crushed. The bandits didn't even know they were dead and passed into the afterlife. Naruto jumped high in the air and caught his sword in mid-air. He instantly flashed wind chakra through his sword and made a swipe at the nearby 3 bandits. They saw the sword etching closer and tried to parry the attack by raising up their own swords. Futile. Naruto's attack cut the bandits' swords to pieces, followed by the bandits' head. Nearby Sasuke quickly slashed the throat of a bandit. He then jumped in the air and cleaved the other bandit who was trying to run away in half. He felt strange. He had already killed 3 people. He was amazed when he saw Naruto kill 13 bandits in 5 seconds. He was so much mesmerized by the precision with which Naruto was attacking that he left his back open to the enemy. Big mistake. Die! Yelled a bandit fro behind. His sword was quickly moving to chop Sasuke's head off in an instant. Sasuke tried to block the sword. His kunai was slowly moving to block the attack. But the enemy's sword was just an inch away from his neck. Sasuke felt his entire life flash before his eyes. His mother, father, his clan, everything was over now. Amaterasu. Sasuke heard this word, and when he opened his eyes he saw the bandit's entire body engulfed in black flames. The man had an arrow in his head, courtesy of Sakura. He realized before the bandit made any noise she had silenced him. The man's entire body was melting in those flames, the skin was dissolving, leaving a bad foul. Sasuke immediately puked when he inhaled that foul stench. He was quite surprised when he was roughly grabbed by his shoulders. He looked up and saw Naruto looking at him seriously. Naruto's right eye was bleeding heavily, and he was panting a little. Sasuke, focus. We need to finish the enemy, said Naruto tiredly. Naruto had just used his Mangekyo Sharingan. The Amaterasu was his strongest fire ninjutsu. When he had seen Sasuke about to be killed, he immediately used his power to protect him. The vision in his right eye blurred a little and he was in immense pain, but he had to go on. Hi, said Sasuke a little hesitantly. He was worried when he saw blood coming out of Naruto's eyes. He wanted to know what happened. Sakura, I want you to fire your arrows laced with exploding tags in 40 seconds. Till then we will deal with the enemy and Kurenai can put her plan in motion. Then you focus on the others, commanded Naruto strictly. Hi, are you alright? Asked Sakura worriedly. I'm fine. Let's go, said Naruto. Kurenai heard what had happened on her radio. At first she got a little worried, but then she heard Naruto's orders. She was standing in a small tent where 7 bandits were sleeping heavily. She knew she barely had seconds. She immediately took out 7 sharp kunai from her pouch and in one precise strike launched them at the sleeping bandits, killing them instantly. She was thankful to Naruto for giving her a little training in shurikenjutsu. 10 seconds, whispered Sakura in order to warn Kurenai. Hi, said Kurenai quickly and made a ram hand sign. Boom. There was a loud explosion in the armory tent of the enemy camp. Kurenai quickly disappeared from her tent because now their plan was finally going into its last stage. The loud noise suddenly woke up Taro and Sasama. They both looked at each other and understood what was happening. We are being attacked, thought both of them, and picked up their gear in order to fight and repel the enemy. Now, commanded Naruto loudly. Almost all of the bandits had woke up when they heard the loud explosion. Sasama and Taro were already outside in their Chunin vest. Both missing nin were pissed when they saw their armory burning like hell. Wah! Shouted Taro lightly, but he was stopped when Sasama tackled him away quite roughly. Boom boom boom. Taro was quite shocked when his tent along with several others were bombed and blown to bits. Many of the bandits were in the camp and were torn to shreds. Some who had survived had some of their limbs missing and were screaming in agony. Ah! Help me! Save us! All of these voices were coming from every direction in the camp. Where the hell are those motherfuckers? Kill them! Hissed Sasama angrily. She then angrily sped off to the south side of the camp. Sasama, wait! Screamed Taro, but she was already gone. He too went off in another direction to gather his men and flee. In the meanwhile, Enko just stabbed a bandit straight to his heart. The man's eyes widened in shock before they closed, never to open again. His body fell limply to the ground. Hinata just stood behind Anko. She was shell-shocked on seeing such a murder. She was brought out of her daze when Anko slapped her with such force that sent her crashing on the ground. Hyuga, where are the hostages, you little shit? Hissed Anko angrily. This was the girl who was supposed to watch her back. Anko never really had patience and she had even tried to explain it to Hinata in a civil manner, but now the girl was getting on her nerves. Hinata fearfully activated her Byakugan and pointed in the right direction. Anko had just turned her back in order to enter the tent when she heard a body fell to the ground. She looked back and saw it was a bandit with an arrow lodged in his neck. Hinata's entire body was covered in the man's blood. She was shivering, her entire body was covered in blood. What is happening? Help me, thought Hinata fearfully. Sakura, I want you to blow up the eastern wall in 1 minute. Please cover my back, this Hyuga is a pussy. Said Anko seriously. Hi Anko Taiko, said Sakura and took out the pair of bandits guarding the prisoner camp. Good girl, now you follow me and help the women and children. I'll cover you, escape with them, Sakura will rendezvous with you. Protect the hostages with your life, if anything happens to them there will be one less Hyuga in Konoha. Barked Anko angrily. Hi, said Hinata meekly. She realized this was what shinobi were. They murdered, they killed, they stole, this was the truth which Iruka had spoke about. Anko quickly entered the tent, she knew she had to hurry, the others needed her help. Please don't kill us, begged a woman with tears in her eyes. Most of the women were badly beaten and had bruises on their body. 2 of them were unconscious and there was a pool of blood near them indicating they must have been recently raped. Kage Bunshin no Jutsu. Immediately one shadow clone popped up beside her and picked up the wounded females. We are here to save you. Follow me if you want to live, commanded Anko. The women immediately got up and quickly followed Anko out of the tent. They looked around and saw fire everywhere, there were many bodies littered around. The smell in the air was sickening. In a far distance Anko saw Naruto and Sasuke quickly kill 10 shinobi in a matter of seconds. Their speed was frightening, the boys didn't look like teenagers but trained shinobi who had killed. She heard the eastern wall being blown to pieces indicating Sakura had used her last explosive arrows. Hinata, take the hostages and leave. I'll take care of the rest of these scum, Sakura rendezvous with her. Hi, replied both girls. Hinata had already gathered some courage and rescued the kids, a bandit had tried to stop her but Sakura had killed him. She wondered how Sakura did that, how was she able to take a person's life? With her Byakugan active she clearly saw Naruto killing so many enemy, this was not her kind and gentle Naruto. This was a cold-blooded assassin. The same thing was being seen by Kurenai, she had already dealt with her target with the help of her genjutsu and the mission would be over in a few moments. She was unnerved a little when she saw Naruto cut through numerous bandits. It was as if he had no emotions. He had not guilt. He had no soul. She shuddered, she feared what Naruto was becoming. She knew he was strong, she knew he was wise, she knew he would kill, but this was just plain slaughter. Meanwhile Taro was quite frightened, sure he and Sasama had the B rank missing nin status in the bingo books but that was just exaggeration of their skills. They could handle a few bandits but the enemy that were attacking them were skilled shinobi. They must be Anbu, thought a fearful Taro. Their army was almost finished, they couldn't even see what was happening in this pitch-black darkness, no matter how hard they strained their eyes. The sound of bodies dropping from everywhere was sickening. Taro knew there was no escape now. Sasama was missing, his men were killed like chickens, he knew running was futile, he had to fight. Beside him stood 6 bandits, this was what was left of their men. They didn't even know if the others had survived or not. We are all gonna die, said a bandit on the left fearfully. It's all because of you, yelled another bandit. Shut up all of you. Do what I say, we must fight the enemy, said Taro angrily. To his surprise one of his comrades attacked him. Taro defended himself but soon all the remaining 5 bandits attacked him from all sides. He jumped high in the air and in one swift motion killed all the bandits. He hastily landed on the ground. Sasama, where are ga? Screamed Taro in agony. He looked down and saw a kunai had pierced straight through his heart. The entire surroundings changed and the last thing he saw was a cold pair of Sharingan eyes. It's over, said Naruto. His entire uniform was drenched in blood, there were drops of blood on his face which he washed away slowly. He turned around and saw Sasuke was standing still, he had his head bowed down. Sasuke had at least taken out 15 bandits. Naruto knew how Sasuke was feeling, the guilt of first kill in Sasuke. Sakura had taken multiple lives today. Sakura had taken more lives than Sasuke. Naruto was a little worried about her. Kurenai slowly came in front of him. She was holding Sasama. The Chunin was no match for Kurenai. She had defeated her and captured her as per Naruto's orders. Females were easy to crack and Naruto knew that in front of a Sharingan wielder they cracked instantly. "Naruto, are you alright?" asked Kurenai worriedly. She then gently hugged Naruto. She didn't care that he stinked. She didn't care that he had killed so many. She loved him and what they did was for the sake of the mission. They were shinobi. "You alright, brat?" asked Anko softly to Sasuke and put a hand on his shoulders. Sasuke just gave a nod. He didn't feel sad for killing these men but he was shocked to see he had killed so many in one night. "Sakura, Hinata, are you alright?" asked Naruto firmly through his communication device. No response. "Is anyone there?" asked Naruto a little worriedly. "Nothing. We need to check on them quickly," said Anko quickly. The entire team quickly went towards the blown-up eastern wall. On their path they saw that the entire camp had been destroyed with only dead bodies remaining in the area. Naruto used his sensor skills in order to see if they had left someone alive. But no one was alive. His mission was simple: annihilate the enemy and save the hostages. No enemy was to be left alive. He wanted to get some information from Sasama, that's why he had ordered Kurenai to capture her. After that she would be executed. Anko had told him about Hinata's performance. To say that he was disappointed would be an understatement. He still remembered his talk with Hinata's father. Flashback. Naruto was standing at the northern gates ready for the first mission with his team. He was relaxed. A typical B-rank mission that bordered near high C rank was no difficult task. It would still be a few minutes before his team arrived. He was en route Anbu captain and as such was trained to be on time. He was interrupted from his thoughts when a man came towards him. It was none other than Hiashi Hyuga. Hinata had sometimes mentioned about her father when they were in the academy. The strict posture and from the way he walked Naruto knew it was Hiashi. Danzo had also made him remember various information about different political clan heads, just in case. "Naruto-san," greeted Hiashi formally with a nod. "Hyuga-sama, what can I do for you?" asked Naruto respectfully. "The Hyuga clan and I want to make a formal request to you," said Hiashi calmly. "I'm listening. We want you to observe Hinata and her performance during the mission and report it to us," said Hiashi stoically. "It can be arranged. You will get the full report only from the Hokage," said Naruto seriously. Hiashi was a little surprised. He had thought that the boy would ask questions but it appeared as if he knew why all of this was happening. "I thought you would like to know the reason behind this request?" asked Hiashi curiously. "It's quite simple. You want to choose your younger daughter as the heir to your clan but your tradition is getting in the way. So if you can prove Hinata is not capable of leading your clan then she can be made a branch family member. Hinata lacks the confidence and strength in what you are doing as for your clan," explained Naruto briefly. "You seem to know a lot more about our clan," commented Hiashi a little warily. "You are forgetting that Hinata is my friend. I know how she feels. I don't know what happened between both of you and neither it is my business to know. I will give an honest report about her skills in my report. I will not sell her out just to please your clan. She is now a member of my team and I will not do her any injustice," said Naruto firmly. He was quite surprised when a small smile came on the Hyuga clan leader's face. "I may not have been a good father to her but I still care about her. Please keep her safe," requested Hiashi humbly. "I'll try. In the end we all are shinobi and death is our profession," said Naruto stoically. "You are an interesting person, Naruto-san," said Hiashi silently. "That I am." Flashback end. After hearing from Anko about Hinata's actions, Naruto was sure of what he had to do. But still for old time's sake he was going to give the girl one last chance. If she fails that then he would suggest her removal from the shinobi corps. "Naruto, what were those flames back there?" asked Sasuke curiously. "Flames?" asked Kurenai surprisingly. "It was one of my fire-style ninjutsu attacks," explained Naruto shortly. Well, he had at least told Sasuke half of the truth. "Then why was your right eye bleeding?" asked Sasuke sharply. "Naruto," said Anko a little worriedly. "That was the blood of a bandit which I had to hastily kill." Next time be careful Sasuke and don't leave your back open to an enemy. Reprimanded Naruto sternly. Hi, said Sasuke with a small nod. Naruto's right eye was burning like hell, his vision had gotten a little blurry since he used the Amaterasu. If I don't do something about this, I'll go blind in a few months. Thought Naruto seriously. That was a nice strategy, brat, you confused the enemy so much. They even turned against their own leader, the speed of our attack didn't allow the enemy to counter. Hell, they couldn't even see in such darkness. Kurenai's genjutsu and Sakura's attacks were lethal. Said Anko proudly. Yes, we did defeat the enemy. We are shinobi, instead of going in a full-scale battle I tend to finish the enemy in a second. Kurenai took down Sasama in a few moments, I killed Taro without letting him know who I was, or why I was attacking him. A true shinobi always stays in the shadows and protects the village. Said Naruto firmly. You know, you just sounded like Danzo. Said an amused Kurama. TCH, said Naruto irritatingly. What are you going to do about Hinata? Asked Kurenai curiously. I need to do one last thing before I decide what to do with her. Sasuke, deactivate your Sharingan, we're almost there. Said Naruto seriously. Both the boys then deactivated their Sharingan. Naruto didn't want Hinata to know about his Sharingan just yet. When they arrived at the clearing, they saw the hostages were safe. Women were taking care of children and were trying to keep them calm. Sakura was off in the corner trying to heal a woman, while Hinata was trembling in fear in the shade of a tree. Brat, what are you going to do? Asked Kurama curiously. Naruto just had enough of Hinata's weakness, she called herself a shinobi. He quickly went towards her and roughly grabbed her by the neck and slammed her against the bark of the tree. Naruto, snapped Kurenai angrily. She went to stop him, but one look in his eyes made her stop in her spot. Stay out of this, said Naruto harshly. Naruto-kun, said Hinata with ragged breath, she couldn't breathe properly. Hinata, I trusted you, I put my faith in you and yet you failed me. If not for Sakura and Anko you would have been dead. Said Naruto angrily. I'm sorry, said Hinata with tears in her eyes. Sorry doesn't cut it, you put the hostage's life in danger, you put Anko's life in danger, you risk the safety of the entire mission. What the hell is your problem? The world isn't made of roses, you live in your own dream world, Hinata. Why do you even want to become a shinobi if you cannot even defend yourself? Asked Naruto angrily. I wanted to become like you. I wanted to become strong. I wanted to be acknowledged, said a sobbing Hinata. Her voice was getting more choked as she spoke. Naruto, what are you doing? Asked Kurenai angrily. She knew Hinata had failed, but Naruto was going very harsh, she had never seen him so much angry. You say you wanted to be acknowledged, but you will never be acknowledged, said Naruto impassively. What? Asked a shocked Hinata. Hinata, I know how you admired me, how you looked up to me, how you wanted to prove yourself. But yet you did nothing, you just watched me get strong. You never trained, you never tried, you cried like a baby for being weak, you know why your clan and even your own father are disappointed in you. It's because you are pathetic, not because you are weak but because you have no respect for yourself. Said Naruto bitterly and dropped Hinata on the ground. Hinata was already crying, as her dream was crushed. The person from whom she wanted to get acknowledged the most considered her a failure. Before anything further could happen, Kurenai stepped forward. Naruto, stop this now, hissed Kurenai angrily and grabbed him by his shoulders. I did what was right, said Naruto without any remorse in his voice. He looked Kurenai straight in the eyes, she saw how he looked at her, this was not her kind and gentle Naruto, this was a ruthless killer. I know Hinata failed, but you are being rude, said Kurenai softly. She rubbed his cheeks affectionately. Naruto just remained silent and was looking at Kurenai with a soft gaze. Meanwhile everyone else was watching them. Sakura and Sasuke were also quite surprised with Naruto's behavior, the only one who thought Naruto was right was Anko. Hinata was seething with anger now, how dare that bitch, she was taking her Naruto. She is corrupting him, my Naruto-kun would never do such thing to me. I will rescue you from this bitch Naruto-kun, thought a fuming Hinata who was clenching her hands so tightly that her knuckles had gone white. Alright, I'll give her one last chance, said Naruto tiredly. What do you have in mind? Asked Sakura curiously. She was a little sad that Hinata was treated this way, but Naruto was the team leader and what he did was right. Hinata did jeopardize the mission. Hinata, you want to prove that you are a shinobi, right? Asked Naruto seriously. Hi, said Hinata a little confidently. Then kill Sasama, said Naruto harshly and pointed towards the prisoner whom Anko was holding. Wah, T? Asked a shocked Hinata. You heard me. Kill her after Anko interrogates her. Kurenai, I'm giving her a chance to prove herself. Enemy won't be merciful to her or her team. She must learn to be a true shinobi. Explained Naruto, hoping Kurenai would understand. I understand. Agreed Kurenai. I'll see if she has some valuable information, said Anko and went behind a few trees with Sasama in order to interrogate her. Sasuke, Sakura-chan, you did well. How are you feeling? Asked Naruto softly. I'm fine Naruto-kun, but am I a bad person? I took so many lives today. Asked Sakura sadly. No, you are a savior dear, you saved us from those tyrants, they planned to sell us to slavers. If not for you and your shinobi friends we would not be so safe. Thank you, said one elderly woman and gave a soft pat on Sakura's shoulders. We will drop you safely in the hands of the nearest local police. From there you can return to your families, said Naruto with a smile. Thank you, said a small boy. He came forward and hugged Naruto's leg tightly. It's alright, you'll be fine. Grow up and become strong, said Naruto and ruffled the little boy's brown hair. That's my Naruto, thought Kurenai with a warm smile. The women had tears in their eyes, they were finally saved. This had been a nightmare, but now they could return home to their families. Sasuke, I need to talk to you. Alone, said Naruto and Sasuke nodded. Both the boys went away from the others and were now standing on top of a big tree. Kurenai and Sakura were healing the injuries of the woman. What's the matter? Asked Sasuke curiously. Is there any document or evidence which can explain more about the visual powers of the Sharingan? Asked Naruto seriously. His eyes were suffering damage and he had to find a way quickly. Why do you want to know? Asked Sasuke suspiciously. He was just getting a bad feeling about this. I want to know about the various powers of the Sharingan, said Naruto honestly. But your Sharingan is already powerful and developed, argued Sasuke. Are you going to help me or not? Asked Naruto sadly. Sasuke was thinking about whether telling Naruto about the tablet or not. Damn, you really are a good actor, muttered Kurama. Shut up Kurama, I'm trying my best here, my eyes have suffered damage, I need to do something, said Naruto firmly. I know, you don't have much time. You need the power of your Sharingan to do your mission, stated Kurama simply. I know, said Naruto silently. Alright, in the main hall of the Nakano Shrine is the Uchiha clan's secret gathering place, said Sasuke seriously. Naruto was an Uchiha and he couldn't deny him his right, besides he was his best friend and Sasuke trusted him. How do you know about this, if it's a secret place? Asked Naruto curiously. He told me, said Sasuke bitterly. That's all Naruto needed to know and he understood immediately. Under the 7th tatami mat, there is a room beneath which contains a tablet. It explains all about the Sharingan, explained Sasuke briefly. I guess only those who have the Sharingan can read it, suggested Naruto. Precisely, I have been able to decipher some parts of the tablet but the rest I'm still trying, said Sasuke seriously. In truth he knew some things about the Mangekyo Sharingan. Itachi had told him how to get those eyes but he wouldn't do what Itachi wanted him to do. I see, thank you, said Naruto gratefully. Sasuke nodded and both the boys went towards the others. Sakura was resting while Kurenai was standing guard near the hostages. Anko was holding a bruised Sasama who barely looked alive while Hinata was sulking in a corner. What have you got? Asked Naruto. Nothing much, they were the real culprit behind these abductions and they planned to sell the hostages as slaves to various slavers, explained Anko. I see, Hinata, barked Naruto loudly. She flinched a little and hesitantly came towards Naruto and the prisoner. The rest of the team were silently watching the entire ordeal, wondering whether Hinata would be able to do this or not. Naruto took out a kunai from his pouch and put it in front of Hinata. Kill her, stated Naruto simply. Hinata shakily picked up the kunai. She knew it was a direct order and she had to obey it. She looked at Sasama. The woman was heavily bleeding and had bruises all over her body. Anko had badly tortured her. Hinata, kill her or I will kill you, said Naruto and pointed his sword at Hinata's neck. Naruto, said Sakura worriedly and tried to intervene but was stopped as Anko stepped between. Let the Hyuga do this, said Anko sternly. Fortunately Kurenai and Sasuke had already took the civilians and kids somewhere else as Naruto didn't want the innocent children to see this. Now, said Naruto firmly and pressed the sword at Hinata's neck. What should I do? I cannot do this, thought Hinata fearfully. Her heart started beating more faster, there was a throbbing pain in her head, her hands were shaking, her legs were trembling. How could she take the life of another human being? She did one thing which she had done for so many years. She fainted. TCH, Sakura, get her out of my sights. Anko, finish her, would you? Asked Naruto irritatingly. He had made up his mind, Hinata Hyuga was not fit to be a shinobi. Sakura picked up Hinata's unconscious body while Anko beheaded Sasama and burned her body. Naruto sighed tiredly. It has been a long day. Chapter 13, Twilight. Team 7 was standing in front of the Hokage. Naruto was standing in front with Kurenai and Anko on his sides. Sasuke and Sakura were behind their back with Hinata standing last. Mission complete, Hokage-sama, said Naruto curtly. On the other side of the room stood Hiashi, Kakashi and Hiruzen Sarutobi. Any civilian casualties? Asked Hiruzen sternly. None, they have been transferred to the nearest local police, they will take care of the paperwork and send them to their homes safely. A report has been given to me to hand it over to you, said Naruto and handed the file to Hiruzen. Very well, enemies? Asked Hiruzen seriously. Killed till the last man, the heads of Taro and Sasama are in this scroll. Enemy camp has been totally destroyed, confirmed Naruto and handed over the scroll containing the dead bodies of the missing nin. He sure has grown, thought Kakashi proudly. Kakashi then looked at Anko, who was looking at him a little warmly. He gave her a small wink that didn't went unnoticed by Naruto. Kakashi and Anko had gotten together a few days back and were now deciding on marriage. Naruto was very happy for both of them. Excellent work, you performed the mission faster than I expected. Now give me a brief report on the team's performance, stated Hiruzen simply. Anko and Kurenai performed as expected, they got the job done. Sasuke was a little hesitant at first, but he controlled his emotions and got the job done too. My performance was satisfactory. Sakura gave the best performance in this mission, she not only protected us but also destroyed the enemy. We owe our success to her, said Naruto with a short smile. Sakura, you have done very well. Konoha is blessed to have such skilled shinobi like you in our forces, your contribution is definitely going to be taken into consideration for your promotion to Chunin, announced Hiruzen happily. It's nothing, Hokage-sama, all of us did our part, said Sakura a little embarrassingly. Getting praise from the Hokage was a really big thing. Naruto-san, how was Hinata's performance? Asked Hiashi seriously. Hinata, who was standing in the back, flinched a little when she heard her father's voice. She feared of what would happen now. Pathetic, said Naruto harshly. What? Asked a shocked Kakashi. Hinata was his new student, she was a little shy, but to call her pathetic was a little harsh. Care to explain, Naruto-san? Asked Hiashi a little angrily. No one insulted a Hyuga in his presence, less his daughter. She was tasked with helping Anko in rescuing the hostages, but she failed, she couldn't kill the enemy, she left her comrade open to attacks, she was trembling in front of the enemy. If not for Sakura and Anko, I would be handing over her corpse to you, Hiashi-sama, said Naruto truthfully. Hinata, said Hiashi loudly. Hinata came forward, she was shaking from head to toe. Her father was always angry when someone brought shame to the Hyuga clan, and she had done just that, and worst of all, she was the clan heiress. Now Hiashi, calm down. Naruto, it happens sometimes in the field, said Hiruzen calmly. I understand, that's why I gave her a second chance too, said Naruto tiredly. You did? Asked a surprised Kakashi. Yes, after capturing Sasama, we interrogated her. Then I asked Hinata to kill her as she was the enemy and the village protocol clearly states to kill the enemy. My aim was to make her accept the truth of being a shinobi, explained Naruto briefly. Did she obey your order? Asked Hiashi hopefully. She fainted, said Naruto bitterly. Hinata brought her head down in shame, how could she look at her father? She had failed everyone, she had failed Naruto-kun. Hiashi was looking murderously at his daughter, she was a disgrace to the entire clan, he could accept her not killing the enemy but fainting by a Hyuga. I apologize for my daughter's disgraceful actions, Hokage-sama, Naruto-san. Said Hiashi bitterly. Hinata just kept her head down in shame. Kakashi-Nisan, I know you are a good teacher, you taught me and Sasuke, but in my opinion Hinata is not fit to be a shinobi. Said Naruto frankly. Hinata's heart shattered in a million pieces, she couldn't believe what Naruto was saying. How could you do this to me, Naruto-kun? Thought a depressed Hinata. I know Hinata has some issues, but she can be a good shinobi. With time I can train her and make her ready. Suggested Kakashi. Naruto, while Hinata's performance was poor, I think I might have a solution to her problem. Said Hiruzen kindly. What is it, Hokage-sama? Asked Kakashi curiously. Let her be transferred to the hospital in order to become a medic. Some people are just not made for the front lines. I believe Hinata is not yet ready yet. So Hinata, you are now removed from Team 8 and will join the medical corps. Ordered Hiruzen. But Hokage-sama, said Kakashi in protest, but was cut off when Hiruzen signaled him to keep silent. I know what I'm doing. Said Hiruzen sternly. Hi, said Kakashi sadly. Hokage-sama, if our presence is not required, I request you to grant us permission to leave. Hinata has to answer to the elders for her disgraceful performance. Said Hiashi curtly. You may go. Said Hiruzen quickly. Hiashi immediately left the office. He gave a stern gaze to Hinata to follow him. As Hinata was leaving, she gave one last glance to Naruto, who just gave her a short goodbye. Now Team 7, you have done a good job. You are relieved for 2 days, get some rest. The payment for the mission as well as the bounty of the 2 missing nin will be transferred to your bank account. Said Hiruzen with a smile. Thank you, Hokage-sama. Said Naruto with a bow. Naruto, I need to talk to you, the rest of you can go. It'll just take a moment. Said Hiruzen seriously. Alright, do any of you guys wanna go for lunch, my treat? Offered Naruto happily. I've got some personal work to do. Said Anko with a light blush. Naruto and Kurenai gave her a knowing smile, while Sasuke and Sakura just shrugged. Well, see you later. Hope you enjoy your time. Said Naruto with a smirk. Shut it, brat. Said Anko embarrassingly and gave Naruto a bop on the head. No need to get wild, you know. Said Naruto with a pout. HN, said Anko and shunshined away. Kakashi bowed to the Hokage and left in a swirl of leaves. I've got to help my parents at the shop. Sorry. Said Sakura apologetically. I want to do some training. Said Sasuke simply. Alright, next time perhaps. Shrugged Naruto. Sure, well, have a good time, you too. Said Sakura with a wink and shunshined away. Naruto was a little surprised, and so was Kurenai. Sasuke just gave him an amused smile before he shunshined away too, leaving Naruto, Kurenai and Hiruzen in the office. Well, that just leaves us for the lunch, I suppose. Said Kurenai with a wide smile. Now I can finally spend some time with you. Thought Kurenai happily. I'll meet you outside. Said Naruto with a warm smile. Kurenai gave him a smile and went out of the office. Hiruzen gave Naruto a knowing smile, which was then replaced by a very serious look on his face. He made a signal and Naruto felt the Anbu leave the office. Hiruzen then activated the silencing seals and motioned for Naruto to sit in front of him. Naruto, are you doing the right thing by doing this to Kurenai? Asked Hiruzen seriously. Naruto sighed. In truth, he had not just expressed his love for Kurenai because he wanted to, instead it was his plan. I know what you mean. Said Naruto sadly. How long is it before that day? Asked Hiruzen sadly. 20, said Naruto stoically. She would be broken when you do this. What in the world made you do this to her? Asked Hiruzen a little angrily. You are family, Gigi, but there are some things in my life which I have a right to decide. I will do my mission for the village, but the rest is none of your concern. I have a right to choose my own path and I have chosen mine. Said Naruto harshly. The preparations have been made, I want you to meet our Anbu commander. Said Hiruzen stoically. If Naruto didn't want him to interfere, then he wouldn't. He then raised his hand. Immediately a figure came out of the wooden floor, it was as if he had merged with it. Naruto was surprised, he hadn't sensed this man's presence in the room, then again that was to be expected from the chief of Anbu Black Ops. The man was wearing a gray trenchcoat, his face was covered by a wolf mask. Naruto Uchiha, said the man respectfully. Hiruzen had briefed the Anbu commander about Naruto's truth and his skills. Naturally the commander was surprised, but he had agreed with the plan. It's an honor to meet you, Taiko, said Naruto with a deep bow. Naruto then sensed something in the man that made him widen his eyes. Your chakra, it is eerily similar to the, said Naruto in shock. The Shodai Hokage, explained Hiruzen. Judging from the way he merged himself in the wooden floor, he must have some talent like Shodai-sama. You are certainly not a Senju, as members of that clan had a unique chakra signature. Your cells resemble Shodai-sama, explained Naruto briefly. Astonishing, you are the first person besides the Hokage to recognize my chakra, said the Anbu commander in shock. I want to know how you know this, Naruto, asked Hiruzen curiously. Every clan of Konoha have a unique chakra signature, and those with a special Kekkei Genkai. I know this because Danzo trained me in this, explained Naruto briefly. And because he too has the same chakra signature, thought Naruto darkly. Indeed, said Kurama sternly. Now I see why you chose him, Hokage-sama. He is indeed talented, complimented the Anbu commander. How are you going to explain my actions to the village? You will need a good plan, advised Naruto seriously. That we have, but before that, Naruto Uchiha, it is my greatest honor to have a shinobi like you in our forces. Your sacrifice will save the village, said the Anbu commander firmly. I see, what's the plan? Asked Naruto seriously. Hiruzen and the Anbu commander then explained the entire plan to Naruto. He was quite surprised with the plan they had came up with it. I guess this is it. Meanwhile, Kurenai was patiently waiting outside. She was very curious as about what was going on in the room. If it was not the Hokage and anyone else, she would have tried to listen what was going on. After what seemed like 30 minutes, the door to the office opened. Naruto stepped out of the door. His face was sad, his eyes it was as if they were dead. What happened? Thought Kurenai worriedly. But as soon as he saw her, his sad face was replaced by a wide smile. But something told Kurenai that the smile was fake. Are you alright? Asked Kurenai worriedly. I'm fine, just the old geezer and his boring talks. Don't worry, said Naruto with a smile. If you say so, said Kurenai hesitantly. Well then, would you like to go to Hubby's? It's a very good restaurant, suggested Naruto happily. That is also one of the most expensive restaurants of Konoha, chided Kurenai playfully. What, you don't think I can pay for us? I'm hurt, said Naruto with a fake pout. I didn't mean that, I mean why waste so much money? Said Kurenai warmly. If it means I can make you happy, money doesn't matter. Come on, I know you like the food, said Naruto firmly. Sigh, I guess I can't win an argument against you, said Kurenai with a smile. She really was happy that Naruto cared so much about her. No, I'm the best after all, said Naruto proudly and punched high in the air. I beg to differ, said Kurenai with a smirk. Naruto face-palmed on hearing that. Kurenai couldn't stop her laughter on seeing that. She looks beautiful, I wish I could see her smile always, thought Naruto warmly. I'm hurt, Kurenai-chan, said Naruto with mock anger and roughly sat on the ground. Kurenai looked at him softly. He's such a baby sometimes, but I love it, thought Kurenai with a blush. Kurenai slowly bent down and wrapped her arms around his neck. It was very fortunate that they were in a secluded corner of the Hokage tower. She then gently started laying soft kisses on his neck. Ah, said Naruto blissfully, as he felt very aroused when he felt her soft lips kissing his neck and her warm hands running through his soft blonde hair. Is that good enough for an apology, Naruto-kun? Said Kurenai sultrily. You just know which buttons to press, don't you? Asked Naruto with a smirk. I try my best, said Kurenai coyly. Well, let's get going, said Naruto and got up. He then offered his hand to Kurenai and they both sunshined away. Hubby Restaurant. Naruto and Kurenai were sitting in a secluded corner of the restaurant. Both seemed very happy as their first mission as a team was a success. Here's to more successful missions, toasted Kurenai. Naruto gave a short smile and drank his sake. Kurenai also slowly drank her sake. She was really happy. So how are you feeling? Asked Kurenai softly and put her hand on Naruto's hand gently. What do you mean? Asked Naruto in confusion. You know, with all the killing, I was really worried when I saw you doing that, Naruto, said Kurenai worriedly. I understand, I didn't enjoy that, but I am shinobi and it was my job to do that. Besides, those men were scum, said Naruto a little angrily. I know how you feel, I'm not trying to start an argument here, said Kurenai defensively. Naruto nodded. He knew she didn't mean anything but was just worried. Both of them started eating their food until something came up in Naruto's mind. Hey, Kurenai, can I ask you something? Asked Naruto hesitantly. Yeah, said Kurenai nonchalantly. She was a little busy in eating her food. What was the mission you did a few years ago? You know, that one, said Naruto silently. He really wanted to know for all these years, what was that made her so sad? Kurenai's breath stopped for a second. She looked at Naruto for a second. He seemed genuinely concerned about her. She knew he only wanted to ease her pain. Why do you want to know? Asked Kurenai sadly. Was your mission similar to mine? Thought Naruto sadly. It's just I'm worried about you. You don't have to tell me if you don't want. I love you with all my heart, and no matter what happens I'll be there for you, said Naruto affectionately and caressed her soft cheeks. Even if you are the one who will kill me, thought Naruto with a sad chuckle. A small tear escaped from Kurenai's eyes. The pain was still within her. The little girl's fearful eyes, the look of betrayal on Yakumo's face, the hatred and sadness which she saw in her eyes. I'm so sorry, said Kurenai to herself, and a few more tears slipped from her eyes as she remembered her student. Naruto got up from his seat and went and sat beside her. He gently hugged her. He couldn't see her tears. He wanted to be there for her, even if their love would be short-lived, even if she would hate him with all her heart, he would be there for her and always love her. She hugged him more tightly and started sobbing more loudly. Fortunately, Naruto had placed privacy seals around their corner and paid the waiter a good sum to leave them alone until called. Kurenai's grief was overtaking her. It had been 4 long years. How she had lived with such pain only she knew. If Naruto hadn't come into her life, she didn't know if she could have lived with such guilt. It's all right, said Naruto and rubbed Kurenai's back soothingly. Her eyes, said Kurenai sadly. She still couldn't stop crying, those innocent eyes. I'm such a baka for asking you this. I'm so sorry, said Naruto remorsefully. He felt like stabbing himself straight to the heart right now. It's okay, it's not your fault, said Kurenai calmly. Her sobbing had stopped, but there were still a few tears in her eyes. Let's just talk about something else, suggested Naruto softly. No, will you please hear me out? Pleaded Kurenai. She just wanted to share her pain with somebody, and who better than the man she loved? If you want, said Naruto with a smile. He leaned a little and pressed his forehead against her. She gently removed his face mask and kissed him lightly. She just wanted comfort. Naruto slightly opened his eyes and saw how passionately she was kissing him. She had her eyes closed, but he could see the few tears slipping from them. She just looks so delicate, gentle, thought Naruto warmly. He then gently wiped away the tears from her angelic face, and kissed her more lovingly. She moaned in his mouth when he gently caressed her tongue with his own. They both kissed each other for a few minutes. Kurenai was feeling a little more happy. The pain in her heart was reducing with each passing moment. Naruto was trying his best to make her feel wanted, to make her feel loved even after what she did. She broke the kiss after a few moments and kept her face down in shame. Would he still love me after he knows what I did? Thought Kurenai sadly. Feeling better? Asked Naruto gently. Naruto, I want to tell you the truth, said Kurenai hesitantly. Truth? Asked Naruto in confusion. I destroyed a young girl's life, said Kurenai sadly. Naruto was shocked to hear this. Kurenai was not a person who would do such a thing. Something was missing. What do you mean? Asked Naruto gently. Before I tell you this, I know you would never love me after hearing this, but I will always love you, said Kurenai with a sad smile. Naruto gently lifted her chin, so he could see her straight in the eyes. Kurenai saw his fierce blue eyes and the love which they had in them for her. Nothing you say could ever stop me from loving you, said Naruto with determination. A warm smile came on Kurenai's face when she heard how fiercely he loved her, but she didn't want to get her hopes high. After hearing the ugly truth, she wasn't sure that he'd ever want to have a relationship with a person like her. A few years ago I was given the task of training Yakumo Kurama, said Kurenai hesitantly. The heiress of the Kurama clan? Asked Naruto curiously. Yes, she was my student, said Kurenai, surprising Naruto. Really? Asked Naruto in a surprised tone. Training a clan heir was supposed to be a great honor for a Junin. Only the best were chosen for the task. She was a prodigy Naruto. Her skills and talent in genjutsu were far more powerful than mine. She could use her imagination and do almost anything," said Kurenai a little proudly. "That's amazing, Kurenai, to have such talent in genjutsu," said Naruto in shock. "But," said Kurenai in a choked voice. Naruto understood something bad must have happened, so he gently wrapped his arm around her and let her lay her head on his shoulders. "I guess things went downhill," said Naruto solemnly. Yes, she had a problem. She had a violent inner personality. It acted as a fail-safe mechanism whenever Yakumo was scared or sad. Its main purpose was to fulfill every wish of Yakumo, and it went to very bad depths to make it happen. It even went as far as to kill her parents," said Kurenai sadly. "That's horrible. Did Yakumo knew about this?" asked Naruto gently. "No, she was a very scared child. The Kurama clan's reputation had decreased since the past few years, as they were unable to provide talented shinobi like before. Yakumo was born with exceptional powers and she felt as if the entire clan's existence, her parents' wishes, all of them depended on her. Her body did not allow her to become a ninja, but still she thrived to become one," explained Kurenai briefly. "She must have been a good person. She really wanted to prove herself," said Naruto with a short smile, as he remembered how he wanted to prove himself to Kakashi in the past. "But she couldn't control her powers. She was not fit to be a shinobi. I advised her to give up on her dream of becoming a shinobi," said Kurenai sadly. "You did the right thing. If she was not fit, then by trying hard she must be hurting herself and her family," said Naruto thoughtfully. "That's what I wanted her to understand, but she thought that I didn't believe in her abilities and her inner personality started getting more violent. Many accidents even happened in the Kurama clan because of her unstable powers," explained Kurenai briefly. "The Hokage must have taken some actions after such losses," said Naruto firmly. "He did. He asked me to seal away her powers, and thus finally destroying her dream to be a ninja. It was my mission to stop her from the madness and I did that. The way she was hurt, the way she looked at me. Naruto, I cannot forgive myself," said Kurenai grievously. Naruto didn't know how to react. Kurenai had done a perfect job. She had did what a true shinobi would have done for his village. But he wasn't an idiot either. He knew he just couldn't say something like this straight to her face. "You did the right thing. If she was allowed to stay that way, she would have hurted herself and many others. Sometimes for the future of many a few people must be sacrificed," said Naruto sadly. "Naruto, it's alright, I know how you feel. I lost someone too," said Naruto, shocking Kurenai. "Who was that person?" asked Kurenai silently. "He was my best friend," said Naruto sadly. "What?" asked a shocked Kurenai. Naruto just gave her a sad glance. "He died protecting me from the villagers a few years ago. For my sake he sacrificed himself," said Naruto sadly, and a lone tear escaped from his eye. He could never forgive himself for Shin's death. Only if he had just stabbed himself, Shin would have been alive. He could have had a future, a life. Shin died to save a scum like him. "I don't deserve this, Nissen," thought Naruto miserably. He was quite surprised when Kurenai hugged him tightly. She was trying to comfort him. She couldn't believe what she had heard, the pain of losing one's best friend. She didn't want to even think about how she would feel if Anko died. "What was his name?" asked Kurenai softly while still rubbing his back lovingly. "Shin. He didn't have a last name?" asked Kurenai curiously. "We both were orphans, so," muttered Naruto. "I understand, just stay with me like this," said Kurenai warmly and hugged him more tightly. Naruto just hugged her more tightly than ever. He needed this, he needed someone, he needed Kurenai. This moment, he didn't want it to end. He wished to stay like this with her forever. He wanted to cherish this moment as long as possible. He knew what he was doing was wrong. He was hurting Kurenai by doing this. But he just couldn't live like this. He knew he would save the village by stopping the coup, but the blood of so many of his friends would always be on his hands. The pain Kakashi, Anko, Tsunade, Amiko, Sasuke, Sakura, all the rookies, Hiruzen and most of all Kurenai would feel because of his actions would be unbearable. The sins he had done in the past, present and future were hounding his soul. He wanted to atone for his sins, to atone for all the mistakes he did, to pay for all the innocent lives he took in the name of Konoha, all the lies and treachery which he had done for the village, the sin of murdering Shin. The greatest evil was of breaking Kurenai's heart. And he had found a way to pay for all of this. He wanted her to kill him. He wanted her to get him out of his misery, his guilt, his pain. He wanted to die by her hands, the person he loved the most in the world. All the Uchihas are fucked up in the head, thought Kurama frustratingly. He didn't want to say anything as nothing could change his container's mind. I need you, Kurenai, said Naruto desperately. He was hugging her so tightly that it was starting to hurt her, but she didn't mind. She knew he needed her right now and she would stand by his side. I'm right here, everything will be fine, said Kurenai soothingly. Get a grip, you idiot, yelled Kurama irritatingly. Do you always have to ruin the moment? Said Naruto tiredly to his longtime friend and partner. You're a mess, you're supposed to comfort her, moron, not cry like a little shit in front of her. What kind of shinobi are you? Asked Kurama frustratingly. Naruto just sighed. He knew he had to control his emotions now. He was an Anbu captain for Christ's sake and he was crying like a little boy. What kind of shinobi am I if I cannot even control my emotions? Crying like a baby in front of you, said Naruto with a chuckle. It's not a crime to cry, Naruto. We are shinobi but we are human too, explained Kurenai and broke the hug. Yeah, I guess you were right. Just remember this, Kurenai, it was not your fault. You did what was best for Yakumo and the village. You shouldn't feel guilty, said Naruto with a warm smile. Says the person who blames himself for his friend's death for the past 4 years, said Kurama bemusedly. Shut the fuck up for now. I'm having a moment here, said Naruto angrily. Alright, no need to get your panties wet, said Kurama and laughed loudly. Naruto just cut off the connection and looked at Kurenai. You don't blame? Asked Kurenai hopefully. No. Do you still love me? Asked Kurenai more expectantly. I love you, no matter what you did in the past, present or what you may do in the future. My feelings for you will never change, said Naruto happily. Thank you for understanding me and staying by my side for all this time, Naruto, said Kurenai happily and kissed him lovingly. Well, now that these sad feelings are out of the way, do you think our first mission went well? Asked Naruto professionally. He was trying to change the topic. It went very well, Naruto. You are a good leader. You included every member of the team and motivated them, praised Kurenai. But I couldn't motivate Hinata enough. I failed her as a leader, said Naruto disappointedly. He was angry at Hinata but he was also a little angry at himself. It was not your fault. She has some personal problems which she has to deal with. In time she will get over it just like Sakura did, explained Kurenai. You're right, but you were truly amazing. Sasama didn't even know what hit her. I'm proud to have had a teacher like you, Kurenai, complimented Naruto with a wide smile. Kurenai blushed when she heard that. She really liked when Naruto praised her. You were also very good in taking down Taro. I'm impressed, said Kurenai with a wink. Hehe, I learned from the best, said Naruto happily. Naruto, I want to thank you, said Kurenai softly. For what? Asked Naruto curiously. For everything, said Kurenai lovingly. You don't need to thank me. You have given me everything that I ever wanted. A scum like me doesn't deserve you, said Naruto sadly. Slap. Naruto was quite shocked when Kurenai gave him a hard slap on his right cheek. His eyes widened briefly but when he saw the tears in her eyes he became even more ashamed of himself. She grabbed his collar roughly and brought her face just an inch apart from his own. Why do you always consider yourself as scum? How many times have I told you not to talk like that? Said Kurenai sadly with tears in her eyes. Said Naruto hesitantly. No, you listen to me, Naruto, because I am not going to repeat this. You are a good man, a good friend, a fine shinobi, a good comrade, a good leader, a good brother and most of all a good lover, said Kurenai with a true smile on her angelic face. Do you really believe that? Asked Naruto in a shaky voice. How he wished those words were true. Yes, I love you with all my heart and please just don't say those words anymore, pleaded Kurenai. Hi, said Naruto submissively. Good, but don't think you won't be punished for this, said Kurenai with a smirk. What do you want me to do, Kurenai-sama? Teased Naruto with a small smile. Carry me home. Ha, asked Naruto in confusion. On your back, finished Kurenai victoriously. What? You, re-fucking heavy, yelled Naruto defensively and pointed an accusing finger at her. He just loved making her angry. The expression on her face was priceless. What did you say, Naruto? yelled Kurenai and raised her fist to bonk him. I'm so dead. Kurenai's apartment. Lemon warning. Naruto gently laid Kurenai down on the ground. She had a large smile on her face. Naruto had enjoyed carrying her. All the negative emotions which both of them had felt were now gone. Kurenai did give him a large bonk for making a little fun of her, but she laughed afterwards. Her laughter was so melodious for him. Thank you, Naruto-kun, I love you, said Kurenai happily and kissed him passionately. Naruto kissed her back more lovingly. He was happy to know that Kurenai was free from her guilt now. Yes, the sadness was there, but now she could move on with her life. The fact that she had shared such a painful memory with him showed how much she loved him. Kurenai's hands gently went to Naruto's crotch and she caressed it a little mischievously. You know, a beautiful woman like you shouldn't do that. It's hard to resist, said Naruto with a mischievous grin. Then don't resist, said Kurenai lovingly. Naruto slammed Kurenai against the door. She was quite surprised with how anxious he looked. She gently put a hand on his chest. He looked at her in confusion. Let's get inside, or you want to do it in public? Asked Kurenai with an evil smirk. She just loved teasing him. Ah, no, I don't mean, stuttered Naruto in embarrassment. His cheeks were red as tomato. Shish, it's all right, said Kurenai warmly and put her finger on his lips, silencing him. Naruto felt even more excited than before. He was not a virgin, so he knew what he was doing. As a part of his training, Danzo had made him have sex with a prostitute. It was only for mission's knowledge, just in case, and well, Danzo demanded perfection in almost everything. And reading Ika sometimes also made him aware of the desires of the opposite sex. Kurenai gently opened the door to her apartment with her right hand, while her left hand was encircled around Naruto's neck, who was kissing her more passionately. She tried to put the lights on, but Naruto's hands stopped her. Kurenai looked at him in confusion. They at least needed a little light, or else they might fall somewhere. It's better like this, said Naruto seductively. Hearing Naruto's sexy voice surprised Kurenai. She didn't know he had such talent. Well, good for me, thought Kurenai naughtily. Naruto flashed his Sharingan. His deadly red eyes made Kurenai even more excited than before. You really look a lot more sexy with your eyes, said Kurenai with a moan as he kissed her neck. Is that so? Whispered Naruto right beside her right ear. He gently nibbled her ear, sending jolts of extreme pleasure across her entire body. The moans which Naruto heard from Kurenai made him realize that this was her soft spot. He smirked and gently started to lick her ear slowly with the help of his tongue. Naruto! Screamed Kurenai in ecstasy. She really liked this. The lust was increasing in her with every passing second. He really knew where to please her. She hurriedly bit him on the neck. She felt as if she would come right there with the pleasure he was giving her. She encircled both of her legs around his waist tightly. Taking the cue, Naruto picked her up gently, but in order to tease her a little more, he gave a tight squeeze to her ass cheeks. The moan which he got from her made him more happy. He was happy that Kurenai was enjoying this. It was the first time when he was having sex with feelings for his partner. Deciding to please Naruto, Kurenai gently started kissing his neck. The fact that she was using her tongue was very much arousing for Naruto. He felt his manhood erupt quickly. The pleasures she was giving him was unimaginable. Naruto didn't know why he was feeling so happy. He had sex before, but this was totally different. They had just started, but it felt as if he was in a whole new world of pleasure and lust. Perhaps it's because I love her, thought Naruto. He then gently kissed Kurenai and slowly started to walk towards her bedroom. Kurenai was happily returning the kiss and was moaning in his mouth. She gently slid her hands around his chunin vest and with one quick flick unzipped it and threw it away. He gently laid her on the bed while continuously kissing her luscious lips that he couldn't resist. They were so soft, delicate and tasty. Plus the smell of her lipstick was really enjoyable. Kurenai felt Naruto's lips placing gentle feather-like kisses on her neck, and she arched her head back to expose more of her neck to him. And as he gently licked and nibbled at her neck, a small moan of pleasure escaped from Kurenai's mouth when she felt his gentle, wet, and hot kisses travel down from her ear to her collarbone. As he continued to place kisses on her neck, Kurenai reached out to run her fingers through his soft, touchable hair, while rubbing the back of his neck. Soon she felt Naruto's hand softly cup her breast before a thumb flicked across her left nipple, as he gently fondled her breasts. Kurenai could feel an intense pleasure rising from within her, and she could feel her nipples hardening under his soothing touch, driving her mad with desire. "More, Naruto, that feels so good," said Kurenai with ragged breath. The sensations were driving her mad. Naruto moaned a bit at the sensations that were flowing through him from the contact of Kurenai's full and supple breasts in his hand and crushed against his chest. Kurenai smiled at that reaction and understood it completely as she reveled in pleasurable feel of it as well. Naruto rose up slightly and gazed at the crimson-eyed goddess underneath him and marveled at her incredible beauty once more. Kurenai was considered to be one of the most attractive kunoichi in all of Konoha, and many men admired and stared at her with both perversion and lust. Naruto, however, only looked at her with desire and love. Naruto was quite surprised when Kurenai flipped him over and was now sitting on top of him. The mischievous glint in her eyes brought a confident smile on his face. "My turn," she said seductively and ripped his t-shirt apart. "She sure is wild," thought Naruto with a smirk. "You sure have a good taste in women, brat," said Kurama proudly. "For once I agree with you," said Naruto with a smile. He moaned in pleasure when Kurenai started laying kissing all over his chest, leaving red marks of her lipstick over his body. "Ah, Kurenai Heim," said Naruto excitedly. Kurenai was quite surprised and happy when Naruto called her Heim. It made her feel special. Suffix like kun, chan or Heim, but she was truly making him happy, and that brought more smile on her face. She felt something hard poke her firm ass. She looked at Naruto, who gave her a small shy smile. A devious idea came in her mind and she gave him a feral smile. "Man, she's turning me on with each passing moment," thought Naruto more roughly. Kurenai bent down a little and unzipped his pants along with his boxers. She was quite shocked when she saw his penis. For a male who was barely 15, he sure had hit on his hormonal growth quickly. "His dick is so large and hard," thought an amazed Kurenai. Kurenai decided she was not going to be deterred. The red-eyed woman licked her lips at first and then gently kissed the tip of Naruto's cock while he stiffened slightly and hissed as he inhaled a sharp breath. Kurenai smiled at this reaction and continued to kiss his length from tip to base and gently did the same thing to his two balls, which caused Naruto to become even more aroused as his cock hardened and twitched thanks to Kurenai's actions. Seeing and feeling Naruto's cock spasm made Kurenai feel even more wet at the thought of Naruto's length being buried deep inside of her body. As soon as she finished her round of kisses, she began anew, but this time she gave Naruto's rock-hard cock a few gentle licks with her moist tongue. "Fuck, you're amazing," yelled Naruto with pleasure. Naruto groaned out loud in pleasure. If the feel of Kurenai's warm, soft, and moist lips were not enough to send him into a frenzy of lustful desire, then the feeling of her tongue touching his sex was making him even more aroused by the second. It was when Kurenai finally took in his full length into her mouth gently, and with great surprise Naruto nearly lost control, as he held out her name. Naruto gently grabbed her raven locks while she continued sucking his cock. He was in a new world of pleasure. This feeling, it was as if he was in heaven and having sex with a goddess. This was partially true, as Kurenai was truly a goddess. Her beautiful face, her ample breasts, her curves, all of it were driving him mad. Kurenai relaxed herself for a few moments and countered her body's natural gag reflex, as she slowly took in more and more of Naruto's cock into her mouth and down her throat. Seeing the pleasure she was giving to Naruto, it made her feel good to know she could please the man she loved in such a way. It also made Kurenai feel powerful, sexy, and in control, as she felt great pleasure in making Naruto moan and shout out her name in his currently throaty voice. Naruto finally lost control after a few minutes. His body couldn't take so much pleasure. He realized he was going to come very soon. He didn't know if Kurenai would like it in her mouth, so he decided to warn her. "Kurenai, I'm going to come," said Naruto loudly. She just continued her actions. Naruto was finally on the verge of coming in her mouth. "Kurenai," he screamed one last time. Kurenai knew what was coming when she felt his cock spasm violently in her mouth, but she wanted this and began sucking on his shaft with even greater enthusiasm. Her efforts on Naruto's sex were finally rewarded by an eruption of warm globs of liquid shooting forcefully in her mouth and down her throat. This first spurt of Naruto's seed into her mouth allowed Kurenai to taste him for the first time. The seed was a bit salty and somewhat thick, but it also had a rather nice fresh flavor and it was hot. Kurenai had heard that some women dislike the taste, but she certainly found nothing disgusting about Naruto's seed and decided she could get used to this, as she took in the next coming spurts as much as she could manage. Ultimately, Kurenai found she could take no more lest she drowned and released his cock from her mouth. Naruto was panting heavily. Kurenai truly knew how to pleasure a man. He was sweating profusely and his smell was making her more aroused. That was incredible, but now it's my turn, said Naruto excitedly and flipped her over. He was now on top of her. Kurenai really was enjoying his dominant nature. She indeed liked to take charge, but she also loved when Naruto took her body. He just ripped her t-shirt apart and tore her bra away. He had enough with her. Now it was his turn and he would truly make her feel pleasure. He started to kiss and lick the valley of her cleavage before turning his attention to her exposed chest and was astonished at the voluptuous shape of Kurenai's breasts before cupping her breasts once more within his hands and feeling the softness, firmness, and warmth of them. Relying on the accuracy of all the Ica novels he had been reading ever since he was old enough to understand them, Naruto began to kiss and lick Kurenai's breasts softly and gently to make sure she got to enjoy the sensations that were soon to come. "Ah, please, more. Naruto," begged Kurenai. Kurenai smiled and moaned out loud at the sensations of Naruto's hot lips and tongue on her breasts. The crimson-eyed goddess could only moan and cry out her pleasure as the sensations started from her nipples to her breasts and then spread to all of her body, even to her fingertips and toes. She never felt so alive in all her life, as Naruto continued to worship her breasts. He moved from her right to her left, making sure to evenly distribute the pleasure for her so she would not be disappointed. "More, Naruto, that's so good. Now I know why Nissan read those books every time. They truly are helpful." As Naruto finished his adoration of Kurenai's breasts, the mewling sounds he heard from the woman he loved was enough to tell him that he had done well, which was very satisfying to hear, but he knew that it was just the beginning. Naruto then slowly removed her pants. He was quite amazed when he saw her fully naked. Words couldn't describe how beautiful, hot, sexy she looked. Kurenai's cheeks had a shade of pink on them when she saw how Naruto was looking at her. "You truly are a goddess," complimented Naruto as he saw her fine pussy. Kurenai blushed a little on hearing such compliment from her man. Naruto gave her a nod and she gently parted her legs, allowing him to see her utterly naked. He bent down and gently kissed Kurenai's wet deep pink slit and she moaned out loud in happiness and sheer desire. He then began to lick her folds while nibbling gently as well, and the whimpering sounds Kurenai made told Naruto that he was doing it right. Satisfied with this, Naruto tried to remember all he had read and went for it, as he thrust his tongue deep into Kurenai's wet and dripping pussy, and Kurenai shrieked with delight. "Oh Kami, ah!" Instantly, Kurenai's thighs tightened around Naruto's head and her hand shot down below to grip the mane of his blonde hair tightly, as she arched her back in ecstasy in an attempt to have his tongue delve further into her quivering core. Naruto felt the pressure around his head increase, as he feasted upon the torrent of fluids flooding his mouth. The sweet smell and taste of the liquid he was devouring was like ambrosia and was very much enjoyable to his senses. However, before he would finish, Naruto had every intention to make Kurenai cry out his name in pleasure. Naruto's ministrations then took aim at the extended bundle of nerves at the top of Kurenai's pussy and gave the hardening nub a long lick of his tongue. When Kurenai felt that action on her clit, it was enough to make the red-eyed woman buck off the bed momentarily and unleash a guttural moan that seemed to echo through the room. Naruto continued his assault on her clit, which included licking and gently nipping it, making his lover even more active and shouting out her pleasure and bliss. Naruto's wanton attack on Kurenai's nub made her spill even more moisture into his insatiable mouth, as the whimpering moans of pleasure he heard began to increase in volume. "Naruto!" Kurenai shouted out in joy and happiness, while Naruto continued to lick and plunge his tongue deep into her pussy with strong and focused swipes, as she held his blonde hair tightly and dug her nails into his scalp. Naruto, however, ignored the slight pain caused by Kurenai's grip and focused only on giving her the pleasure she wanted so badly at that very moment. Kurenai moaned once more and her body rewarded his efforts with more of her sweet fluids, and Naruto took in as much as he could. He continued his actions, as he felt his own sex become very hard and demanding, but he focused solely on his current task and placed his own desires out of his mind. When Naruto took hold of Kurenai's clit between his teeth and rapidly flicked his tongue over it, that was the final trigger, as Kurenai's entire body went rigid before she screamed out his name in ecstasy once more. "Ah!" As Kurenai tensed up and arched her body, her sweat-covered form trembled from the overwhelming force of her first orgasm, and it was divine to her. She felt like she had been shattered into tiny pieces and sent hurtling into a massive storm of sensations and white-hot pleasure that she swore mentally felt like she was flying into the farthest reaches of the sky before falling gently back to earth. The crimson-eyed woman moaned once more in contentment, as she felt her heart rate begin to slow down and the pleasure that filled her quaking body subsided. Kurenai opened her eyes and looked down to see Naruto smiling at her, his face glistening in the flood of juices she had released. Naruto moved back up the bed and Kurenai smiled before they kissed once more. She didn't mind tasting her own moisture on her lover's lips, tongue, and face, as it only served to turn her on even more. Naruto was now looking at Kurenai lovingly. He knew what was going to happen if they didn't stop. He wouldn't even dare to fuck her if she didn't want or was uncomfortable. "We should stop now," said Naruto calmly. "What?" asked a shocked Kurenai. "I mean, I understand if you don't want to continue further." Whatever Naruto was trying to say was cut off when Kurenai firmly placed her hand on his mouth and looked at him fiercely. "Fuck me now," commanded Kurenai. She didn't want to stop now, not after receiving so much pleasure. She knew he was concerned about her feelings and that made her happy, but she needed him now. Naruto nodded and pushed in his cock more, and in a few moments, and due to Kurenai's great wetness, he had reached the end and his hips were now touching hers, and she moaned out her desire and she spoke in soft but utterly pleasure-filled words. "You're inside me, Naruto-kun. Kurenai-chan." Naruto couldn't say anything else as he felt Kurenai's womanhood accept his full length, showing that due to her life as a kunoichi, Kurenai had no doubt torn her maidenhead, and while that made it seem that she was no longer a virgin, but her sex was so tight and the lack of a barrier allowed Naruto to push his full length into her wet sex. Kurenai was in utter pleasure in all this and she couldn't help but gasp at the feel of it all, but now there was a hunger in her body, a feeling in need, and she wanted something to happen and only Naruto could make it happen. She moved her hips a bit. And Naruto got the message quickly. He slowly pulled back his hips and Kurenai gasped at the feel of his sex moving in her own, and when Naruto was almost out he slowly pushed right back in, making Kurenai gasp out in utter pleasure and lust as the sensations flooded her body and filled her to the core. As soon as he was nearly out he pushed right back in and Kurenai gasped at the delicious sensations that flooded her body the very second it happened. "Oh yes, right there, Kurenai-chan, so tight." Naruto began to move his hips and soon established a rhythm with his actions, and the sensations that flooded his mind made him want to scream in joy. The heat, the wetness, the tightness and the softness of Kurenai's sex all around him made him feel as if he would burn alive in pleasure, and there was a desire to continue on with what he was doing, and he did so as he moved his hips in and out of Kurenai's wet sex as he felt it caress and tighten on his sex deeply. Kurenai moaned out her pleasure and joy as Naruto continued to thrust deeply into her warm and wet sex, and the feeling of his cock filling her to the brim was intoxicating to her and something that she had never thought possible as she clutched the bed sheet below her very tightly. She moaned and screamed out her pleasure as Naruto continued to thrust deep and hard into her sex, increasing his actions greatly and picking up speed with each thrust he gave to her. More. Yes. Naruto was in heaven. That was the only word to describe the pleasure he was feeling at the moment, and it fit the bill as he continued to thrust harder and deeper into Kurenai's hot sex, and the woman didn't mind at all as she moaned, shouted, and screamed her pleasure to him, and Naruto obliged her demands as he picked up the pace. He then took her long and slender legs and placed them on his shoulders, allowing him to thrust even deeper into her wet pussy, and Kurenai relished the change and moaned out her pleasure as she played with her breasts. And as both were new to this, it was not long before both reached the limits. Kurenai, Naruto, both orgasmed at the same time, and Kurenai shouted as she felt her sex being filled by several large spurts of Naruto's hot seed that touched her inner walls at the very moment of her release, tripling the pleasure she felt, and she felt like she was going to faint from all the sensations of passion, desire, joy, pleasure, and more as she felt Naruto's seed flood her sex. She was thankful that she was not fertile at the moment as she was not yet ready to have children, but she placed that aside as she relished the memory of the white-hot pleasure she felt. Naruto likewise shouted his pleasure as he fired his seed into Kurenai's sex, and he felt her inner sheath move and caress his cock in such a way that he felt even more pleasure flood his brain like a tidal wave, and he relished the heat of Kurenai's sex, and he felt himself release even more of his seed into her body and wanted to fill her to the brim. Both lovers looked at each other and smiled warmly and thought that they were in heaven at this very moment and time, and they didn't care at all as the pleasure was still there. Naruto leaned down and kissed Kurenai deeply, and she reciprocated with her own passionate and fierce kiss. "I love you, Naruto-kun. I love you too, Kurenai-chan." Chapter 14. I am in hell. The shiny rays of the sun slowly fell on his body, enlightening him in their warmth. He slowly opened his azure eyes. It was morning. Naruto felt something on top of him. His vision was a little blurry. After a few seconds he recognized who this person was. Kurenai was clearly sleeping on top of him. Her head was closely pressed against his chest while her silky raven her hair were shining in the morning light. Their legs were intertwined with each other. She was completely naked and her body was glowing magnificently in the morning light. Naruto couldn't help but blush when memories of the previous night hit him with full force. It had been the most beautiful night of his life. He truly had loved each moment of that night. Looking at her beautiful face made him more aroused, but she looked very exhausted, so he just settled for staring at her. He was going to miss this. He was going to miss her. He wondered how his life would have turned out if his parents didn't die, if he was not a Jinchuriki, if he had not joined Root. Would he still be with Kurenai? Would his life still turn out the way it had? He just wanted it all to end. He wanted to finally rest in peace. He knew some people might think of him as a coward, but his life was filled with more pain than anyone could imagine. Each person has a limit before he breaks down completely, and Naruto knew he was way past his limit. He was just dragging on his life just to fulfill his mission, fulfill the promise which he made Shin of protecting the village. After that he would be free, free from his guilt, his pain, his misery. He would make sure Kurenai would be the one to kill him. He would do everything possible to make her strong. By killing him he would make her the biggest hero of the Hidden Leaf village. She would then finally move on with her life and he would just be a bad memory. It was painful, there was no hope left for him, but he would try till his last breath to try to amend for his sins. Naruto, what do you plan to do about those eyes of yours? If you keep going at this rate, you'll go blind in a year or two. Warned Kurama sternly. I know, that's why I will go to the Naka shrine today. I have a feeling, all of our questions will be answered there. Said Naruto calmly. Very well. Said Kurama and cut off the link. Naruto slowly felt Kurenai move a bit. After a few moments her ruby eyes opened. Naruto gave her a small smile which Kurenai reflected with her vibrant smile. She leaned forward a little and captured Naruto's lips in a heated kiss. Naruto didn't resist but instead turned her over, so he was now on top of her. He kissed her back lovingly and was slowly exploring her mouth and sending jolts of pleasure down Kurenai's body. Their little makeout session continued for a few minutes until Naruto stopped and was now just staring at Kurenai calmly. Kurenai too was just looking at his Sharingan eyes. He really looked very handsome and caring. Last night was the best night of her life and she now really wanted to spend more time with Naruto. What are you looking at? Asked Kurenai curiously. You are the most beautiful female in the world, Kurenai-chan. Said Naruto with a smile. Trying to flatter me, are you? Well, your trick is really working. Said Kurenai with a soft chuckle and came forward to kiss Naruto. He just gave her a soft peck on her lips and broke the kiss. Kurenai frowned. What was up with him? It's getting late. I'll prepare something for us to eat. You can rest till then. Said Naruto warmly. I guess you're right. Said Kurenai calmly. However, Naruto didn't move from top of her. She got a little curious. Naruto sensed this and decided to say something. Kurenai, last night was the best night of my life, and I truly enjoyed every moment I spent with you. Said Naruto slowly. I enjoyed every moment too, Naruto. Said Kurenai with a warm smile. Naruto bit his lip nervously. He was thinking about the right words to say this. Kurenai got confused. Naruto was really acting a little strange. Hey Kurenai. Said Naruto hesitantly. Yes. Can you promise me something? Asked Naruto very slowly. What is it? Asked Kurenai a little skeptically. If I ever lose myself in darkness, will you save me? Asked Naruto sadly. Now Kurenai's danger senses were starting to kick off. Something was really off and she decided to know about it right now. What kind of stupid question is that? I'll save you no matter what, Baka. Said Kurenai harshly. Thank you. Said Naruto gratefully. Why are you saying this, Naruto? Asked Kurenai suspiciously. It's nothing, it's just I'm the Jinchuriki of the Kyuubi and if I ever lose control. Said Naruto but was stopped when Kurenai sent him a harsh glare. You won't lose control, Yondaime-sama's seal is the best. Besides, I won't let him have you. Said Kurenai fiercely. As if I could do something. Damn this fucking seal. Said Kurama angrily. Naruto gave a warm smile to her in return, while he ignored Kurama. I know, but if I ever lose control. Said Naruto fiercely. You won't. said Kurenai, but was cut off when Naruto gave her the most cold look she had seen in her entire life. His Sharingan was spinning madly. Kurenai's entire world went blank. After her few moments, Kurenai slowly opened her eyes and found she was in a dark room. Suddenly a pair of cold Sharingan eyes started spinning in front of her eyes and she got hypnotized. Yami number Sakai no Jutsu, World of Darkness. You will kill me, ordered the Sharingan eyes. Hi, said Kurenai without any emotion in her voice. After that her world went blank again and she slowly started losing consciousness in those mesmerizing Sharingan eyes. The plan has been put into motion. He slowly washed the blood that was coming out of his eyes. He was in pain, a lot of pain. Naruto gently opened his eyes. His vision seemed to blur a little, he couldn't properly see his face in the mirror. He blinked his eyes for a few times and then slowly his vision seemed to get clear, though it was a little hazy than before. It really took a lot of my power, thought Naruto tiredly. You fucking moron, do you know what you have done? Yelled Kurama at the top of his lungs. I am well aware of what I am doing, said Naruto calmly. He wasn't even a little bit fazed by Kurama's response. He was expecting such a response from his partner. You casted your most strongest hypnotizing genjutsu on her to kill you? Asked Kurama angrily. Yes, this was the most ultimate and strongest form of Yami no Sakai Jutsu. It will not fail. Kurenai will never be able to overcome my visual powers. This genjutsu would force her to kill me, no matter how much time it may take, said Naruto neutrally. You do know that she is the most powerful genjutsu master in this village and your teacher too, warned Kurama. I know, but there is slim to no chance at all for her to break out of my genjutsu. I have ran through all the possible outcomes and loopholes, explained Naruto briefly. You know that she loves you and you will make her kill you? Asked Kurama furiously. He had enough of Naruto's madness. The boy had started losing it. She won't remember any of this. She will not hesitate. She will not stop. I implanted the entire mechanism in her mind through this genjutsu. She will kill me, but not consciously, said Naruto calmly. But what would happen after she kills you? I don't want to diminish your skills, but with me sealed in you it won't be easy. Besides, I won't let you, said Kurama harshly. I have a plan for that too. She will get strong enough to kill me. And as for you trying to stop me, you do remember you have been defeated twice by the power of the Mangekyo Sharingan, don't you, Kurama? Asked Naruto darkly. His tone was so cold that for a second Kurama could see Madara in Naruto. Are you threatening me? Asked Kurama dangerously. No, I am telling you. Don't get in the way. Besides, what does it matter to you? You'd be free anyway, asked Naruto curiously. Kurama just remained silent. He really didn't want to tell the boy that he considered him his only friend. Is there no other way? Do you really want to die, Naruto? Asked Kurama sadly for the first time. Naruto was quite surprised. Never had he heard Kurama being sad about something. Thank you for being my friend, thought Naruto gratefully. Yes, I want it to end this way, Kurama. I want to die while I'm still human, said Naruto sadly. Your father didn't seal me in you, so you could just throw your life away. He wanted you to master my power and bring peace to this world, snapped Kurama angrily. My father's dead, said Naruto harshly. Naruto. He wanted to believe in that reason because he wanted to find solace in his pathetic existence, said Naruto hatefully. What are you saying? Asked a shocked Kurama. For the first time in his existence his eyes were wide as saucers. There is no such thing as hope, said Naruto bitterly. His Mangekyo Sharingan was already spinning at tremendous speed. Naruto's entire body was shaking too. There is no such thing as peace, yelled Naruto and cut off the connection. Kurama's couldn't believe in what he just heard. Naruto always wanted to bring peace in this world. It was his dream. But since Shin's death, Kurama had noticed Naruto had started to change. He had started losing faith. He lost faith in his friends, his superiors, his comrades, his adoptive brothers, the Hokage. He had lost faith in himself. He had lost faith in Kurenai's love. He had lost faith in the shinobi world. Naruto Uchiha had fallen to the Uchiha's curse of hatred. Chapter 15. The S-Rank Mission. Birth of the Sharingan Devil. He sat in a dark room, all alone. It was his home, well, for now at least. The entire room was engulfed in the smoke that was coming from the cigarette that he was smoking with the help of his right hand. His back was laid back against the wall and his face didn't show any emotion on it. He had a small note in his left hand which he was staring at quite intently. This was his choice. This was his fate. This was his dark path. He looked up and saw the smoke in the air. He idly wondered if humans are like smoke who ultimately vanish into thin air. What awaited a person after death? Was it heaven? Was it hell? Or was it loneliness? He could accept either of the choices, though after tonight he knew he would most probably be going to hell. But he didn't want to remain alone. Loneliness was the worst fear of his life. He was a Jinchuriki, and for such a person loneliness was the worst pain in life. He really didn't want to know how he would have turned out if Kakashi had not adopted him, if he had not made such good friends like Sasuke and Sakura. If he didn't have such a good family like Hiruzen, Amiko, Konohamaru, Chuki, Ayame and Tsunade. And most of all, he wouldn't have been sane if Kurenai had not loved him. He had no regrets except one: he didn't blame anyone for his misery nor his pain. Maybe it was karma and he was paying for the crimes of his past life in this one. Maybe he really was a monster, demon that the people had called him in the past. After tonight, no matter what his reasons might be, what type of person he was, nothing would be remembered. He would only be known as a traitor, a murderer and scum. It didn't bother him at all. He had made his peace with destiny. He knew what he was doing was for the greater good, and with great power came great sacrifice. Self-sacrifice is the duty of a true shinobi. A small smile came on his lips as he remembered that phrase which his brother had told him. A small memory came to his mind which reminded him why he was here. Flashback. A few days ago. In a small abandoned hut, two figures could be seen standing in the darkness. One of them was standing straight while the other was in a kneeling position and had his head bowed. The person who was standing was wearing a black cloak and had his face covered by a wolf mask. "Have you made up your mind yet?" asked the cloaked person sternly. The other person just didn't answer and kept his head bowed down. His silky blonde hair was flowing freely with the cool breeze of the wind. After a few moments he said in a low voice, "Please wait, I just need more time," requested the person formally. "It will be too late once the players start to make their move. The situation is extremely fragile," said the wolf-masked person seriously. "Hi," said the other person silently. "If you haven't made up your mind, we'll be forced to take action," ordered the wolf-masked person sternly. The other person panicked and raised his head instantly. The wolf-masked person could clearly see the shock in his azure eyes. The shock in his eyes slowly died away. His eyes morphed into a Mangekyo Sharingan. "I realize that," said the person slowly. "Naruto. I'll end this once and for all," said Naruto and walked away. Flashback end. A tired sigh escaped from his mouth. It really was time and there was no going back now. Tonight he was going to set aside all his personal feelings and do his duty as a true shinobi of Konoha. Most of all, he was going to fulfill the promise which he had made to his now dead brother. He slowly dropped the note that he was holding in his left hand. He picked himself up and slowly made his way towards his shelf. He put on white bandages around his arms and legs. He still remembered Kurenai giving these bandages to him as a gift. A small chuckle escaped from his lips as he remembered how he had complained to her that they were not cool and received a light bop on the head in return. He put on his arm guards over the bandages on his arms. He gently put on his black pant and strapped his weapon pouch on his right thigh. Opening the door to a shelf, he could see a vast amount of weapons and supplies stashed in it. Kunai, shuriken, exploding tags, wires, medkit, few storage scrolls and a sword. He was going to need all of it. His hand slowly started placing a large number of kunai and shuriken in his pouch. He sealed some stuff in the scroll and stuffed them in his back pockets. The wires and medkit were hidden in the pockets of his pants. The medkit was given to him by his teammate and longtime friend Sakura Haruno. She really cared about his safety and his health. He was grateful for having such a caring friend. He slowly put on his shiny black combat boots. They were very sturdy and stubborn. He put on his black t-shirt which had a small Uchiha crest on its back. Sasuke had given him this t-shirt on his birthday and he was grateful to him for that. He put on his Anbu gray flak jacket. This was his uniform. His hands then went towards the hilt of the sword that was very precious to him. This was Shin's sword, the sword of his beloved big brother. Whenever he held it in his hands he felt as if his brother was with him and he was not alone at all. He sheathed his sword on his back with a gentle push. His hands then went towards his Konoha forehead protector. It had a very unique black piece of cloth which Anko had personally sewn for him. He was grateful to his sister figure for giving him such a present which she made with her own hands. At last his hands slowly went towards his black face mask. This was his first gift which Kakashi had given him. Kakashi was the closest thing he had to a father and a big brother. Naruto knew no matter what he did, he would never be able to repay the man enough for adopting such an orphan like him and giving him a good life. A small tear escaped from his eyes as he remembered all the good times he had with Kakashi. Their training, their pranks, their joy, their pain. He would never forget anything, and he would never forget Kakashi, the first precious person of his life. He slowly put on his face mask and wiped away his tears. He stepped up in front of a mirror and looked at himself. He was ready. He looked as a killer shinobi. He was not Naruto. He was an Anbu captain. He was a soldier. He was a shinobi of Konohagakure no Sato. He was Naruto Uchiha of Konoha. He gave one last glance to the picture on the wall of his apartment. There were several people in that picture. Naruto stood in the center with his Chunin vest. Kurenai was leaning on his right side and had a big smile on her face. Sasuke stood on his left with a bored look while Sakura was beside Sasuke and had a big smile on her face while making the victory sign. Kakashi stood in the back with an eye smile on his face while Anko was leaning on Kakashi and had a board proclaiming how sexy and beautiful she was on her back. Thank you for everything. These were his last words before his azure eyes morphed into a three-tomo Sharingan and he put on his Falcon Anbu mask. He left the house with a shunshin knowing he would probably never return home again. The only thing that remained were memories and the note which he had left on the floor. It just had one word on it, but the message was clear. Goodbye. A lone figure could be seen standing on the rooftop. His shiny Anbu gear was being reflected in the moonlight. But the most unique things was his Falcon Anbu mask and his three-tomo Sharingan which could be seen through the holes in the mask. The person's vision was fixated on a small window of a nearby apartment. More specifically on the person who was sleeping in the apartment. She had silky raven hair and a very beautiful face. She was sleeping in her nightgown but she looked like a goddess in the moonlight. Her beautiful luscious red lips could make any man fall for her. There was a flash of thunder which made her open her eyes. She sat up straight and looked outside the window. Her vision was very blurry but she saw a person standing on a rooftop opposite her window. Was it an Anbu? She slowly wiped away the dust which was on her eyes and now looked more clearly. But no one was there. The person was gone like the wind. It was as if he was a ghost. I swear I saw someone outside just a moment ago, thought Kurenai in confusion. Naruto awaited patiently in the shadows of a tree. In front of him there was a small clearing. To any normal person it would seem as if no one was there, but Naruto knew better. Anbu were ninja who specialized in stealth, and the fact that this person was very stealthy was to be highly taken into consideration. A small snake slowly slithered beside Naruto. The unique thing about this snake was that it was made of ink and it slowly dissolved into the ground in front of Naruto. This was the signal. He shunshined in the field and awaited patiently for his comrade to show up. He could feel his presence. He knew where he was and was waiting for him to show up. Suddenly a shinobi in Anbu gear rose up from the ground beneath. He had a tanto strapped on his back and his face was covered by his cat mask. Naruto looked at this person seriously. Now they were in enemy territory and they had very less time to fulfill the mission. The invasion was going to happen in a few hours, and for the first time the entire Root Anbu Black Ops had gathered in one single location. Naruto knew most of the Root Anbu must be awake and ready for any type of attack, but this was their only chance. He will not fail. Report, said Naruto sternly. I have taken out the patrols and the guards at the entrance, however the entire main task force is inside, said Sai curtly. How many? Asked Naruto with a weighted breath. Killing bandits, Junin was one thing, but Anbu were the best of the best. The fact that the Root Anbu were mere killing machines who would not stop until they annihilate their enemy or themselves wasn't helping Naruto either. 300, said Sai, shocking Naruto. What? Asked Naruto in shock. There was an entire Anbu force equivalent to 3 companies of ninja. Each Anbu was equal to 5 Chunin. Things just got more fucked than they were before, thought Naruto frustratingly. Sai sensed his friend's dilemma and he didn't blame him. Even he was nervous. They were facing an entire Anbu force all by themselves. The fact that many of these Anbu were their comrades and friends in the past was severely weakening their morale. Sai and Naruto were the only ones en route who couldn't kill their emotions completely. They were shinobi, but they still could not muster enough courage to kill their own comrades, their friends, their superiors, their teachers. It was so much painful that both boys couldn't describe their feeling in words. "Do you want to abort?" asked Sai silently. "No, we will do this. There is no going back now. If we don't stop them now, the entire village will be swept in a civil war by tomorrow. We must do this. We'll go down fighting if it means saving the village." "Are you with me?" asked Naruto seriously. "Till the end," said Sai confidently. "Sai, I know how you feel, but this is for the greater good," said Naruto sadly. "I know, Naruto, you are my friend. We are in this together till the end. I know how your heart is breaking right now," said Sai in a remorseful voice. Naruto dropped his head in shame, his fists clenched tightly. He was going to kill his friends, the kids he had trained and grew up with. The teachers who had taught him, his superiors. All of them. It was unbearable. And all of this was happening because of one man's madness. "Danzo," thought Naruto angrily. "All of this is happening because of that bastard. If not for him, Nissen would be alive right now. He must pay for his crimes against Konoha and against all of us. I will kill him tonight no matter what happens," said Naruto dangerously, and his Sharingan flashed murderously. Sai did his best to control his feelings. Naruto was very angry right now, and it was good that he was on Sai's side. Sai pitied those who were going to face Naruto in combat. Naruto was the strongest Anbu captain ever in the history of Konoha. His skills were totally on a different level, and Sai didn't even want to think about Naruto's Sharingan. Those eyes scared him to death. He still remembered Naruto slaughtering 3 platoons of Iwa shinobi in a covert operation a few years back. Sai was very frightened when he saw how dangerous Naruto was in battle. It was as if he was the descendant of Uchiha Madara himself, and the man was a legend. "Here's the plan," said Naruto seriously. Sai was brought out of his thoughts and he looked at Naruto. He had displayed a map and now he was going to explain their strategy. "Hi, Taiko," said Sai strictly. The madness and bloodshed was about to begin. Hell was going to be unleashed. Bor was getting a very bad feeling with each passing moment. Even his squad that was standing guard beside him could feel something very bad approaching their position. It was as if the Shinigami was at their doorstep. He was stoic as usual, but something was wrong. He was sure that by tomorrow Danzo-sama's plan would be successful and the Root Anbu would have taken control over Konoha by eliminating the higher command. They had the strongest Anbu captain and the Jinchuriki of the Kyuubi by their side. They were unstoppable. Oh, how wrong he was. He was interrupted from his thoughts when suddenly mist started to form all around his and the squad's position. They were supposed to be guarding the frontal part of the base, and it seemed that they had intruders. Kurigakur number jutsu, hidden mist technique, thought Bor analytically. Bor's danger senses suddenly kicked in when suddenly his feet started to get bound by black snakes. Sai, thought Bor alarmingly. Sai was the only Anbu in the entire Root division that specialized in such jutsu. The fact that he was being attacked by these ink snakes meant that Sai had turned traitor. Bor's eyes hardened and he unsheathed his tanto. He tried to look for his squad in the mist, but he couldn't see anything. He closed his eyes in order to focus and he could barely hear the sounds of a few slashes and sound of drops of blood falling on the ground. He knew what that meant. His squad was now dead and he was probably the only one standing. He suddenly tried to jump, but those snakes were holding him tightly. He made a hand sign and substituted himself with a nearby log. Sai, I must report this to Danzo-sama, thought Bor immediately. But fate had other plans. Bor suddenly felt the entire air around him turn as cold as ice. The air was filled with so much ki that the tanto he was holding fell to the ground with a thud. Bor's entire body was shaking. He could feel the presence of his enemy behind his back. He knew it was over. "So, you have turned traitor," said Bor calmly. He knew there was only one person who could get behind his back so easily. He had trained the boy since he was little. He was the best student of his class and Bor knew his death was now imminent if he was his opponent. "It's over, sensei," said the assassin silently, but his voice had a sad tone in it. "The way we think is different, but I'm still proud of you," said Bor curtly. He was an honest person and he valued skill above everything else, and the man standing behind him was the best student he had ever trained. Bor took one last breath and slowly closed his eyes. He had made his peace with death. The assassin quickly slashed his sword and Bor's head rolled off in one sweep. His eyes were lifeless now and his face had a calm expression, but that was hidden behind his Anbu mask. Bor of the root Anbu was now killed in action. "Forgive me, sensei," thought Naruto sadly. He disappeared with his body flicker technique to kill his next targets. No matter what happened, he could not forget the guilt that had started forming in his heart. The man he had just killed was one of his teachers, the one who taught him Kenjutsu. This was just the beginning. There were 295 more lives to be taken before this would be over. Naruto gripped his sword tighter. He was moving at a very fast speed across the dark corridors of the base. He was like a blur moving in the darkness. He knew stealth was his only weapon against these root Anbu, but it would only be a matter of time before there was all-out war in the base. His Sharingan was spinning wildly and his emotions were hidden beneath his falcon mask. He channeled wind chakra through his sword and in a quick motion blocked a strike that was aimed to cut his head off. He could feel the presence of 15 Anbu around him and a moment later he was surrounded by all of them. Looking at their masks, Naruto recognized some of them as his classmates while the others were his comrades. They didn't utter a word, they didn't show any emotion, they just were fixated on killing him. He knew his sensei whom he had killed a few moments ago would have alerted the others before his death through some means. The man was an Anbu and he did his duty even in the face of death. 3 Anbu tried to attack him together and slashed their tanto at him to cut his body from 3 different angles. And their tanto pierced his body from all sides and he fell to the floor in pieces, but before his body completely reached the ground it disappeared in a murder of crows. Genjutsu, thought all the Anbu in shock. But it was too late for them. A left, a right, a straight, a swipe and a long decapitating slice and 5 Anbu's bodies instantly fell to the floor. They didn't even know that they were dead. They would pass into the afterlife believing they didn't commit any mistakes. But all of them had failed to recognize the hand seals which Naruto had performed at lightning fast speed. They were all in his genjutsu from the moment they attacked him and revealed their position. Before the remaining Anbu could get out of their stupor and launch any counterattack, Naruto jumped high in the air and released 10 shuriken at high speed. All the shuriken hit their targets with deadly precision and the bodies of the 10 remaining Anbu fell to the ground in a sickening thud one after the other. They were all dead as each and every one of them had a shuriken lodged in a vital spot of their body that killed them instantly. Naruto immediately ducked in order to avoid the kick that would have broken his neck. He immediately caught his attacker's leg and gave him a hard kick in his jewels which knocked his opponent down on the ground. He somersaulted and delivered a chakra-infused punch that broke his attacker's heart and killed him on the spot. Naruto got a hard kick on his face and was knocked a few meters back with a very strong force. He backflipped in the air and landed a few meters away gracefully on his feet. He looked at his attacker and immediately got on guard when he realized who it was. It was Eagle. He was an Anbu captain like him and was very skilled in taijutsu. The fact that Eagle knew how to counter Naruto's Sharingan was a very bad situation for him. Naruto knew he had very little time before the entire base became alert and fighting Eagle with brute strength would be time-consuming and suicidal. Eagle jumped at him quickly and gave him a very harsh kick that broke one of Naruto's ribs instantly with a sick crack. "Fuck!" screamed Naruto in pain. But Eagle was shocked when Naruto grabbed his leg and instantly was in the front of his face. The last thing Eagle saw was a shuriken in Naruto's eyes and one word which would be the last word that Eagle would hear. Amaterasu. Black flames awakened in an instant and burned Eagle's face. He didn't have any time to react, and he was dead as the black flames melted his face. His body fell to the ground with a thud, but still the black flames didn't went off and they were continuously burning. The entire air had now a very foul odor that reeked of the smell of dead bodies. Naruto vomited instantly when that disgusting smell reached his nose. The fact that he just saw a man's entire face melt away in front of his eyes was pure horror. He had seen the flesh burn and melt off in seconds. Words couldn't describe how sick he felt. He purposefully took Eagle's hit to get him off guard and kill him instantly. Kurama's chakra had almost healed his broken rib, but still it was very painful and he coughed up a little blood. He slowly picked up his sword. It was going to be a long night. With Sai. Choju Giga, Super Beast imitating drawing. 20 ferocious lions jumped on an entire squad of Anbu and instantly tore their body to pieces. Their sickening screams filled the entire corridor and Sai felt really broken on seeing his comrades dying by his attacks. He jumped at the Anbu on his right and tried to stab him with his tanto. Sai's opponent was very quick, and before Sai could realize, he was given a large gash that tore a major portion of his uniform and drops of blood started flowing from his now wounded chest. He looked closely and now he could see flow of chakra in his opponent's sword. Before Sai could react further, he suddenly felt something cold pierce his chest. He looked down and saw two swords sticking out of his chest. He looked back and saw another Anbu had pierced his chest from behind, while the one in front of him had stabbed him straight through his heart. It was over. Fuden Kazakiri no Jutsu, Wind Release, Wind Cutter Jutsu. Naruto quickly performed his lethal jutsu and injured 3 Anbu in front of him. Large cuts appeared on their body and they fell down on the ground, but Naruto hit them straight in the head with 3 shuriken and put them out of their misery. Naruto was quite surprised when another 5 Anbu appeared in front of him and had already performed a very familiar set of hand signs. Cage Shuriken no Jutsu, Shuriken Shadow Clone Technique. Several shuriken quickly impaled Naruto all over his body and he fell down to the ground. The Anbu quickly jumped towards him in order to kill him now, but their eyes widened when they saw something. Naruto performed the Ram hand seal. Katsu, whispered Naruto, and was blown to pieces along with the 5 Anbu. The real Naruto quickly stepped out of the shadows with a calm facade. Kage Bunshin Daibakua, exploding shadow clone technique, success, thought Naruto calmly. The explosion had alerted everyone, and in a matter of seconds a large force of 100 root Anbu stood in battle position in front of Naruto. Naruto was not at all unfazed by this counter-reaction. In fact, his enemy was a little slow according to his standards. His eyes hardened and he gathered a large amount of chakra for one of his most devastating and lethal attacks. His fingers quickly formed the horse hand seal. The sensors in the enemy forces realized that the attack was going to be devastating. It is going to be huge. Brace yourselves, yelled many sensor Anbu. Kaden, Goka Mekyaku, fire release, great fire annihilation. An enormous tidal wave of flames was unleashed from Naruto's mouth, which was heading towards the enemy at great speed. The attack had already covered the entire corridor and was burning everything in its path. Few squads of root Anbu had already came forward in order to defend themselves against such a lethal attack. They quickly made their hand seals together and performed their jutsu. Sweden, Sujinheki, water release, water encampment wall. Both the jutsu collided with each other with great force. The entire corridor was engulfed in the mist that was formed as the fire and water attacks fought with each other. Ultimately, Naruto's attack proved to be more powerful and ran through the defensive water attacks and burned all the Anbu at the front lines. Their screams could be heard in the entire corridor as nearly 60 to 70 of the Anbu got caught in that destructive fire and were now being burned to a crisp. Smoke was blocking the vision of the remaining root Anbu. They were on their guard as they just now saw more than half of their force taken out by one single attack of their enemy. Here he comes, announced a random Anbu quickly as he sensed Naruto's movements. Fire release, great fireball shower. The Anbu eyes widened in shock when they saw the entire ceiling covered in so many large fireballs that were heading towards them with ferocious speed. And right in the middle of these fireballs was their enemy, who was converging at them murderously. "We're all dead," thought all the Anbu in shock. The entire base was rocked by a number of explosions as all the fireballs impacted with the Anbu forces and destroyed majority of the remaining root Anbu. The walls of the corridor were now covered in blood, flesh was now lying in every direction. The foul smell of blood along with the decaying burning flesh could be seen in the entire corridor. Only a handful Anbu survived this brutal attack. They were trying their best to seem unfazed, but even they were stunned by the massacre that just happened now. Smoke was hindering their vision, but they could clearly hear slow footsteps approaching their position. Beads of sweat were rolling off the Anbu's skin as they heard Naruto getting closer and the sound of his sword killing those who were barely alive. "You are weak." The Anbu froze in fear when they heard such a demonic voice. It was as if they were hearing the nine-tailed demon fox himself. "You are naive." Some of the very young members collapsed on the ground in fear, as the ki escalated beyond their limits. "Because your hatred is weak." Another sickening crunch and the sound of a body dropping to the ground could be heard across the corridor. The survivors knew they were now not fighting a man, but a god. The power of hatred is the power to kill. This time Naruto's voice was so demonic that whatever morale the enemy had left till now was completely broken off. The power to kill is the power of revenge. Another blasted ki hit the surviving Anbu with full force and all of those who were standing dropped on their knees. They couldn't breathe properly, the footsteps were now getting closer and they could now see a person coming out of the smoke. All the Anbu's eyes were wide in shock when Naruto emerged from the shadows. He looked like a death god himself. His entire uniform was now drenched in blood and pieces of flesh were stuck on it. His sword looked as if it had a bloodbath, the entire sword was covered in blood and many droplets were falling on the ground. Naruto's Anbu mask looked burned in a lot of places. But the most fearful thing were his eyes. Those cold murderous red eyes that were looking at the surviving Anbu with such hatred. Naruto's Mangekyo Sharingan had already awakened. This is it for us, thought the surviving Anbu finally. Their bodies weren't moving, their hands were shaking and they knew now they had lost. Because your hatred is weaker than mine, yelled Naruto darkly. Kenjutsu style, lightning crescent wave. Naruto released thousands of bolts of lightning from his sword that impacted with the survivors instantly. The screams of the dying Anbu rocked the entire corridor. Even Kurama was startled by seeing such a slaughter by a human. A teenager barely 15-year-old had committed such a heinous massacre. Is this the power of hatred? Is this really Naruto? Thought Kurama worriedly. In the entire history of mankind, Kurama had only seen one man do such a massive massacre and he hated that man with passion. That man was Madara Uchiha himself, the first person to defeat and tame Kurama. That man had used Kurama for his own benefits and right now the level of darkness Kurama felt within Naruto was equivalent if not greater than that of Madara. Kurama was suddenly brought out his thoughts as he felt a very massive attack heading towards his container. Naruto raised an eyebrow as he saw the giant 30 feet earth dragon that was going to collide with him in a few seconds and blow his body to pieces. He had already felt a large force of 150 Anbu that had gathered in front of him and those who had fired such a lethal jutsu on him. Doden, Doryuden, Earth style, Earth Dragon. Very well, said Naruto calmly. Gah, screamed the Earth Dragon. It collided with its target with such a force that the entire base got shaken as if it was hit by a massive earthquake. There were large cracks in the wall and many debris had already scattered as the Earth Dragon hit Naruto. It's finally over, report it to Dans, said the leader tiredly but was cut off when he felt a massive spike in chakra from the direction of their enemy. The entire ground shook violently and slowly white light started to be seen at a distance from the root Anbu force. What is this? Asked one Anbu in confusion as he could not see properly due to the smoke. Suddenly very bad cracking voices could be heard across the entire corridor and the chakra levels went of the roof. The smoke slowly started to clear a little and the eyes of the commander of the root Anbu forces widened in shock when he saw what was in front of him. Naruto's entire body was protected by a very huge skeleton-like structure. The skeleton was bigger than the Earth Dragon they had fired. The skeleton structure was very wide and from the look of it, it was fucking strong as it seemed to have saved Naruto from that Earth Dragon. Naruto was standing right in the middle of this humanoid monster that was protecting him. His Anbu mask had already broken to pieces and he seemed to be panting very harshly. His head was bowed down and his silky blonde hair were swinging wildly while his face seemed to be covered by his black face mask. The entire skeleton was white in color, and it very much resembled the actual color of the human bones. Naruto slowly lifted his head and the root Anbu slowly took a step back in fear when they looked in his eyes. There were now a three-pronged shuriken in his blood-red eyes signaling that he had activated his Mangekyo Sharingan fully. Naruto firmly said one word that sent chills down the spine of all the root Anbu. Susanoo. Chapter 16. The Mystery of Naruto Uchiha. Susanoo. The entire ground shook violently sending a very big shock wave across the entire base. Many of the walls cracked due to the sheer force of Naruto's jutsu. The root forces just stood there in shock, their eyes couldn't believe what they were saying. The entire skull-like structure was developing with each passing moment. At first it was just a skeleton but now slowly veins had started to form over the bones, and now it possessed two Sharingan eyes that had a shuriken in each of them. In the right hand of the structure soon some light started to glow into the root force's shock soon a large 20 feet sword came out of it. The sword was sparkling with so much electricity that the sound was starting to get unbearable. The humanoid monster underwent another change and now its face was covered in a knight armor helmet, only its red Sharingan eyes could be seen which were looking at the root forces murderously. Naruto was in an unbelievable pain. His entire body was on fire, each and every cell of his body was burning like hell. He couldn't describe in words how painful this process was. He suddenly coughed up a lot of blood from his mouth. This jutsu is really harmful for my body, thought Naruto tiredly. Take my chakra, it would decrease the pain your body is in and will not drain your chakra completely, said Kurama seriously. Thank you, said Naruto gratefully. The pain started to decrease as Kurama's chakra started to flow across Naruto's entire body. The effect was instantaneous. Naruto's Susanoo that was white in color now started to have large shades of orange across its entire body. The muscle of the Susanoo became even more hard and two horns of orange color developed on the Susanoo's helmet. All in all, it looked as a demonic monster of hell. Today I'll show you the legendary power of the Uchiha. You shall see why we were feared in the shinobi world, said Naruto loudly. Soon a large spear started to form in the Susanoo's left arm. The spear was very sharp, but the most dangerous thing was that it was entirely made up of black flames. Damn, said a young root Anbu. What is this? Asked another Anbu hesitatingly. His legs were shaking very badly. It's out of our league, said another Anbu defeatedly. Is this the power of a devil? Said an Anbu with a little fear and took a step back. Is this really ninjutsu? We cannot defeat such a monster. This is not good. Naruto's Mangekyo Sharingan spinned wildly and soon the entire spear looked like a blazing inferno that would burn and destroy anything in its path. Enten. Susanoo Kagutsuchi, Blaze Release. Susanoo Kagutsuchi. Naruto's Susanoo raised the now burning spear high in the air. It then moved its hand a little back and then with great force threw the spear straight towards the Anbu forces. Fuck, this is it, thought all the Anbu in fear as they saw the enormous spear ready to destroy all of them in one precise strike. Shintenshin no Jutsu, Mind-Body Switch Technique. Naruto suddenly felt someone take over his body, but before he could do something the attacker was already gone from his mind. So you are here, Fu Yamanaka, said Naruto with a grin. Naruto's spear had totally missed its target and had now struck the ceiling. There was a large hole in the ceiling and black flames were spread on the entire ceiling. As the smoke cleared, Naruto could clearly see Fu as well as his partner Torun Aburame standing side by side in their Anbu gear. Formation C soldiers, barked Fu loudly. The root Anbu forces that had previously lost their morale quickly got into the said formation. The appearance of two of their strongest Anbu captains was a relief for them. Don't give up no matter what. We must fight for Konoha, even if it costs us our lives, said Fu commandingly. We are the roots that support this village. We shall not fall, said Torun firmly. The root Anbu's morale increased further and they tightened their grip on their tanto. Their ki increased greatly and they now looked ready to kill. Naruto started chuckling, which then fully transformed into a mad laughter. Ha ha ha, you two are a good team. Now let's begin the fun, said Naruto with a murderous glare. Fu and Torun's danger senses immediately kicked in as they felt the severe increase in Naruto's chakra. Both of them backflipped towards the Anbu forces and were now standing in front. They could clearly see a dark shuriken being formed in the right hand of Naruto's Susanoo. It looked to be very devastating. Everyone form a defensive wall right now, yelled Torun loudly. All the root Anbu performed a quick set of hand seals in order to defend themselves. It didn't matter if their defense was strong or not, but they had to do something or they were all dead. Doden Doryuaheki, Earth Release, Mud Wall Jutsu. Several walls of mud started forming one after the another. They looked like a domino and were huge in heights and were already reaching the ceiling. Fu and Torun knew that their defense was not absolute because not every Anbu had a earth affinity, so their defense was weak. But they had to fight with quantity against quality. They sensed a large chakra being gathered and a very loud noise could be heard in the entire corridor. These walls must hold or we are dead, thought Fu worriedly. Yusaka no Magatama. There was huge explosion and the entire corridor was blinded in its light. There were several explosions and Fu and Torun could hear their numerous earth walls collapsing and getting destroyed one after the another rapidly. They could hear the explosion coming their way. The temperature was increasing with every millisecond and soon they saw a light appliquing their position. They both knew they had just used a major portion of their chakra to form the defensive walls. They both looked back and saw their men too had anxious looks in their eyes. Some were calm and looked as if they were ready to die and had made their peace. Both the captains looked at each other and gave a firm nod. If we are going down, we shall be beside our men till the end, thought both of them at the same time. Both the captains were quite shocked when 20 root Anbu jumped in front of them. Fu could sense they had gathered every last bit of chakra they had. Doden Doryuaheki, Earth Release, Mud Wall Jutsu. A strong earth wall was formed in front of both the captains, and as soon as it was formed a great explosion occurred. The force was such that both Fu and Torun along with majority of the Anbu forces crashed several meters back with a sickening thud. The entire corridor was covered in smoke, and the only thing that remained was the buzzing noise in every root Anbu's ears. Fu's head was badly injured and blood was leaking from it. He looked around for his best friend Torun and found him a few meters away. He immediately rushed towards him and saw him crushed under a few small debris. He checked his pulse and found that Torun was alive but was unconscious. He looked around and saw many of the root Anbu were now unconscious, while some were trying to get back on their feet but were miserably failing in their attempt. Suddenly Fu remembered those 20 Anbu that had gotten in between them in the attack. He looked around and saw many bodies in front of him at some distance. He ran towards that position, and to his utmost horror, all of the 20 men were dead. Their bodies were badly burned, and Fu could see third-degree burns on their entire bodies. Fu dropped his head and gave a short bow to his deceased comrades who had willingly sacrificed their lives to save the others and him. The dust started to clear, and to Fu's surprise there stood Naruto with his humanoid monster. He was without a scratch on his body. How could he not be injured at all? Thought Fu frustratingly. Naruto looked at the devastating corridor in front of him and all the dead bodies of the now deceased root members. "Ah, this does bring back memories," said Kurama with a dark chuckle. "Are you fucked up in the head?" asked Naruto in confusion. "Says the one who is the most mad person in this world," retorted Kurama quickly. Okay. Geez, don't get your panties wet just yet," said Naruto with a smirk. "You little," yelled Kurama, but Naruto cut the connection off. In truth, he never was in any mood to laugh, or to joke. He felt sick, twisted. All the dead bodies and all the horrors that were in front of him were breaking his heart. He just was trying to divert his mind from all the guilt that had built up in his heart. He just felt like committing suicide, but there was no peace for people like him. His time had just not come yet.